Okay, welcome back. Here we are today. We're going to talk about how you run a campaign. So the purpose of today's video is we want to be able to make content for beginners, people who are getting into this awesome game, and help them sort of navigate their way through getting started. So what we're going to talk about today, Brendy and I are going to go over how to set up the standard campaign, which is called a Dominion campaign. We're going to talk about what that is. We're going to talk about how the house gangs are organized. We're going to talk a little bit about tactics cards as well. And the goal here is the information we'll give you today should help you set up your campaign. And then we're going to move forward from today's video and produce an actual Dominion campaign with a series of linked games, and we're going to use 4 gangs. Okay, so starting off, we'll talk about the types of different campaigns. So there are different campaigns you can play, and when you get the core rulebook, or the current core rulebook, which is, I think at time of recording, it's 2024 is the current rulebook, I think.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different campaigns it lists in that core rulebook. It gives you, I think it's about 6 or 7 different types, but the Dominion one is the one that people generally play the most. It's really got a good structure to it, and it also doesn't have as many complicated aspects to it as some of the other campaigns do. Some of the other campaigns can be a lot more bookkeeping, or a lot more different things are going on in the campaign that the players have to really monitor more carefully. So in this campaign, you're basically setting up a number of territories that the gangs are going to fight over, and that campaign, or any campaign, is always overseen by a person known as the arbitrator. So an arbitrator is a person who is chosen by the gaming group to oversee the campaign. The arbitrator's rules are absolute, so whatever they want to do is essentially what happens. They have an important role in both monitoring what's happening as the campaign progresses. Their job is to make sure that players are adhering to the rules, but also their job is to make sure that they kind of play a balancing role in the campaign, where they try to help players who are struggling not get left behind, because Necromunda is so swingy. And sometimes, really bad things can happen to one player randomly really early on, and they might lose 2 or 3 of their best fighters straight away, while another player might have great success and all of a sudden be hugely wealthy compared to all the other players, and be sort of much more better positioned to win the whole thing. So the arbitrator has this kind of interesting role of monitoring the game, and also making sure that there's some level of equitable play going on. And they really, the rule book makes it really clear the arbitrator is kind of the person who has the final say on anything. Brendy, what do you want to add about the arbitrator's role?
I think the most important part is that it's if there's a dispute on rules, because the game contains so many conflicting rules that
Let's just stop on that. The game contains a lot of conflicting rules.
I know, right?
And that's really important that Brendy has said that, because this is not a game that is easy to play in the sense of understanding all the rules and how they interact, because sometimes things just don't make sense, or they've been improperly written by accident. Whatever. Sorry, Brady. Keep going. Those are just a really important.
And the rules do specify things like whoever's turn it is actually got the priority on rules, but having an arbitrator to sort that situation out in most cases with people is always helpful, I think. And then just keeping the balancing act between the others. Like if someone's having a bit of a hard time, they can come in and adjust. I mean, there's other things that can come into play to help with that as well. which are written into the rules, such as things like underdog tactics, which we'll talk about later. But I think for the most part, yeah, just having someone to be a go-to. And I mean, most competitions and stuff as well usually have some sort of arbitrator running it to make these decisions when players can't come to the decision themselves.
Yeah, a lot of game systems have essentially like a referee kind of
Yeah.
person, and that's what the arbitrator is often required to do. And sometimes the arbitrator is going to get it wrong in the sense that they may make a call on a rule that in the moment seems correct, and then when you have more time to dig into the rules, you might find that was an error, and that's okay. You can't be 100% correct all the time in Necromunda because the rules are just so vast. But that's the role of the arbitrator, is that there's sort of someone that everyone trusts to try to do the right thing by everybody at all times, and that's kind of their job. All right, so moving on from that, so the Dominion campaign is, like I said, it's a pretty standard campaign. So when you want to start off playing, what you do is you have to have this kind of pre-campaign session where you sit down and you discuss how the campaign's going to run. And the arbitrator would usually do most of this themselves, but you might want to do this in a group meeting. But the arbitrator will essentially need to generate the territories for the game, because we're going to be fighting over territories. That's the point of the Dominion campaign. You're trying to gain dominion over a region of the Underhive. And so the rulebook has really clear outline of how this works, and it's generally based on the number of players. So in our case, we're going to play 4 gangs, which means we are essentially playing 4 players. And so when you just refer to the table in the book, it tells you 4 players equals 12 territories generated. Now, just a quick point of note here, because this sometimes gets missed by new people. When you're playing most campaigns, some don't have this, but I think most do. You are automatically given what's called a settlement, which is a little town that your gang controls, and a settlement is a territory that you gain and then can never lose. However, people get a bit confused about this because in the actual territories, settlements are also something that can be drawn randomly as a territory that you might fight over, and so every player gains a territory to begin with, and every player gains a territory to begin with, but also you can gain additional settlements as time goes on. Okay, now looking at what we did, so we have 4 gangs, 12 territories. The next step is you make sure you go through your territories and you identify the territories that belong to each gang. So we've chosen Dalark, Escher, Goliath, and Orlok. And so Brendy has Escher and Orlok, and I have Dalark and Goliath.
Yeah, I've chosen an Escher gang today and an Orlok gang. Between the two of us, we'll play probably both at some point, or vice versa, or you'll play mine and I'll play yours, depending on how the games line up against one another. But for essentially the campaign, we've got the 4 gangs there.
Yeah. Now, what we did is in the rules, what you have to do is every gang has 3 territories that are special for that gang, and that means any gang can get this territory, but this territory gives special bonuses if the gang that it is special to gains it. Okay, so we have Dalark gets a drinking hole, a gambling den, needleways. Escher gets a synth still, stinger mold sprawl, narco den. Goliath slag furnace, fighting pit, smelting works, and Orlok mine workings, tunnels, and toll crossing. So what you do is you pull each of those cards out. Oh, we don't have cards, but you basically put aside those territories, and you randomly generate 1 from each of them to go into your starting set of territories. So that's 4 of the 12 that we actually have to generate. and then you generate the other 8 randomly. Now the rulebook has a way you can do this using a regular deck of cards, which is why I said cards. But we had a pretty good look for about 10 minutes before this, and we could not actually find a deck of territory cards, and we have all the cards.
Oh, I mean,
Brendy even has a couple of double ups, so he's accidentally bought 2 sets of cards, but we don't actually think there's an existing set of cards to represent these territories. But you can use a regular deck of cards, which is what it says in the rulebook.
Some of the campaigns that have come out after the original one have campaign territory cards, but there are no default territory cards.
Yes, that we've been able to find. We might be wrong, but we've been playing this pretty much since it came out, and we don't have a deck of those cards. So in any case, we did that, and we generated a whole bunch of territories, and so now we've got our 12 territories, and then every gang will start with a settlement. So once you've generated those territories, that becomes, I guess, that builds the environment that you're fighting over for the campaign. And once you know all those territories, you're good to go. Now, the arbitrator's job, again, is to monitor which territories are claimed and unclaimed, but all those territories begin unclaimed, except for the home settlement that each player begins with automatically, and those settlements can never be taken from that player. They always remain in under control of that player. All right, so moving on from how the territories work. Next, we sort of like to work in a little bit of sort of character development into our campaign, a little bit of lore. So we came up with a name for our campaign. So we're just naming this location that we've generated the territories for, and we're calling this the Iron Burrow. So now we're going to be fighting over a region of the Underhive called the Iron Burrow, and it's made up of these different territories. Okay. Moving on from that, now we're going to go into the house gangs.